Now, many years ago, Square Enix released a groundbreaking title that went on to become one of the most beloved games in PlayStation and video game history. Tonight, I am proud to announce that by popular demand, we have a very special treat for everyone.
The setting was E3 2015, when Sony PlayStation first announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake would be hitting the PlayStation first. Everyone lost their shit. Those who were in attendance and those who were watching at home. At first, we were skeptical with the visuals, but after seeing Barrett's turret and Cloud's Buster Sword, it seems Square Enix pulled through with their promise. We have come a long way from this to this. My name is Jho-RPG, and the review embargo has been lifted. After playing a few hours of Final Fantasy VII Remake, here is my rough review. Fast forward 5 years later, and after a few hiccups here and there, not to mention other flu-like symptoms to name a few that affected the release, Final Fantasy VII Remake would be out by April 10, 2020. Other countries like Australia got the game on April 1st, 9 days ahead in light of recent events. Lucky for me, I'm in Sydney. Before we could start with the actual review, let me just say that I am an old-school, turn-based JRPG kind of guy. So when I learned that Final Fantasy VII Remake will be an action-based RPG, I had my reservations. Secondly, the last time I played the original Final Fantasy VII for the PS1 was back in 2000. The game was hands down a game changer, and it cannot be denied that it put the RPG genre on the map outside of Japan, if not already. However, since the game has opened the floodgates, there were other great games followed it that I have not revisited or replayed the original since. That being said, die-hard fans had 5 years to replay this masterpiece again and again, just to keep the edge off in anticipation to taste the remastered release. Visuals. As I mentioned, I have only played the game for a few hours, but all I can say is that Square Enix really did went out of their way with this one. It's funny that thinking back during the late 90s, the PS1 graphics of 3D blocks and 2D rendered environments were the best things ever. Now that the gaming technology has evolved after 2 decades, we are now more accustomed to the details the game developers made to look as lifelike as possible. To those who already played the demo, the first stage of the game really did set the initial impression. The remake is indeed a far cry from the original overall steampunk environment. There are boxes that you can kick around, some hurdles that you can trash, some obstacles that you need to duck, crawl, or jump over. If there is a fire, smoke, or wind, your characters would cover their faces. I appreciate that kind of detail in there. Now, this vast and well-detailed environment can be a detriment in some way. If you are not pressed for time, you can truly appreciate the art around you. If you are a perfectionist or a completionist like me, you will be anxious on making sure you have checked every nook and cranny for possible items hidden in the background. Not to mention, those treasure chests that were already scattered throughout every place. And let me tell you, if you don't have a solid walkthrough, there is a good chance you might miss an item or two, because the game progression can move so fast that your brain is too preoccupied on something else important. Having said all that, this game on its essence is still a third-person game, so most of the time you would stare on the character's backside navigating around the dungeon, rooms, villages, or cities. Once you convince yourself on how beautiful the design is, you would just ignore it. But if Square Enix did not make it visually stunning, then what would be the point? Overall, 5/5. Character design. First-time players of Final Fantasy VII will have a different reaction to this. But to those of us who've watched Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, we already had an idea of what the main characters would look like. In the remake, the main focus is not on just Cloud anymore. You know those Avalanche members from the original? They were considered as just throwaway NPCs to help the first dungeon's mission to move along. Here, they play a bit more, that you kinda wish that they would be playable or at least hang around where you really need them. But of course, every character has a purpose, plot-wise. Hearing the people in this game talk really does give an extra layer of enjoyment and appreciation to their respective personalities. Even the actual NPCs sometimes have facial expressions, reacting accordingly to the situation. If you stop and look around, you would notice that not everyone is just a copy-paste rendering of the previous person. They were given variety, which I appreciate Square Enix doing so. Having said all that, there is one moment that I was more invested in. The first encounter of Cloud and Aeris. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Tifa thickness just like the next guy. However, Aeris to me is that girl next door, while Tifa is more of a poster girl. Now, I'm not here to debate who is the best girl, but I'm just curious if the chemistry between Cloud and Aeris was there. Now that we can hear them talk, their initial encounter makes everything seems magical. As far as their chemistry is concerned, let's not debate on that as well. Overall, I give this category 5/5. Battle system. Oh brother, where to start? First off, the game will ask you what difficulty you want things are. For first timers, there are easy and classic, which are virtually the same in terms of gameplay. And the third is normal. Under normal settings, you will experience the whole intricate button mashing and button shifting that this game is intended for. You have your melee fighters like Cloud and Tifa. You have your range fighters like Barret. Given the available players of this game in particular, there are only a few party combinations to choose from and master their individual fighting style, skills, and magic. So the game does give you a variety of gameplay, and not just Cloud hacking and slashing everything in sight. Remember how we have the ATB meters from the original game, where you need for that to be filled before your character can do something? In this game, they brought back the ATB meters, but your characters can still do normal attacks. You only need the ATB meter to be filled to use your magic, skills, and items. The ATB meter can be filled by running around or doing normal attacks during battle. The limit breaks are also back and works the same as the original, only this time with more showmanship and special effects. It won't be Final Fantasy VII without the materia system. For first-timers, materias are these mysterious orbs that would enable you to use specific skills and magic. You will only need the ATB for skills, but for your magic, you will need the MP pool to watch out for. So you got your HP, MP, ATB, and the limit break meters that resemble the original game. There are some twists and turns to be aware of when you go around in battles. Since you are fighting in real time, there are obstacles that can hinder your attacks, but these can hinder the enemy's attack as well. Now remember guys, I'm a turn-based JRPG player. Back then, Final Fantasy VII was the shit in that regard. But going into this, I had a lot of getting used to. As long as you are in a party during a fight, you can shift from character to character by pressing the left or right buttons on the D-pad. You can use this function in your advantage, depending on the enemies, mission objectives, and especially if the AI is too dumb to do its job. You can also put special shortcuts here for your skills, magic, and items, so the game does not have to wait for your ass to decide on what to do next. Overall, 4 out of 5. Music and score. Square Enix resident composer Nobuo Uematsu, the same guy who did the music and score for almost all of the Final Fantasy games, is back. And this time, the limitations of the yesteryears ain't holding him back no more. You got your classic Final Fantasy VII hits, like your battle, town, and of course, your character themes. This is Final Fantasy VII, people. There has got to be badass music, and the music does not happen all the time. It knows where, when, and what to play, given the situation. So you will feel the somber quiet moments when something depressing happens. Overall, 5 out of 5. To those who played the original PS1 game, my guess is that you have somewhat understood the machinations of the plot. To me, Final Fantasy VII's story is among those games that is so convoluted that you just have to enjoy the ride, and not to pick everything that is wrong with the vehicle. Now, there are some comments and issues that people have in regards to this remake's overall plot and how it strays from the original game. But it's all up to you guys if you want to know all of that before playing the game yourselves. But does this game live up to the hype? Knowing what I know now, plus knowing the official statements from Square Enix, I would say, yes, it does live up to the hype. You need to understand, the original game came out in 1997 and it was a major hit. The fans were so adamant for Square Enix to do a remake, despite their initial reservations, but eventually they blinked. In 2005, they released Final Fantasy VII Advent Children to test the waters if people would like the full 3D rendered animation, and fans loved it. They announced the remake officially in 2015, and everyone lost their shit. Production of the game had its share of delays, but the fans were very forgiving, knowing that they would rather wait for the game to be good than buying an obviously rushed trash. 2020 came in and Square Enix decided to finally release the game, despite the pandemic, and we got what we have here, that Square Enix thinks is enough to quell us down. Nostalgia is probably the main driving force with the remake in the first place. And there are fans who are clamoring for a Final Fantasy VII remake even before remakes and reboots are in the norm right now, especially in Hollywood. The question is how much nostalgia should a movie company, or in this case, a video game company, put into the remake, and how far can they push the envelope in changing a few things for the game to be judged on its own merit. I would be lying if I said that I bought this game for the sheer gameplay of it. At my age, I tend to enjoy the story as well. The love story of the Final Fantasy VII Remake to be exact. How about you guys? Have you played the game yet? What are the things that you like and didn't like? Just leave your thoughts at the comments below. Hit the sub, thumbs up, and notification bell for future content if you have not already. This is Jho-RPG, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.